What if being unapologetically me is exactly what sets someone else free? I'm Melinda, your host at Unapologetically Yours. This is a different kind of sneak peek into me, a woman who is always on, always thinking, optimism percolating, and ideas strategizing. And today's episode is a love letter to that kind of mind out there in the universe. You know who you are. It's also a tribute to the people who make room for it, who make room for us. My brain is always on, with very few exceptions. And I don't say this next bit to self-deprecate, but to give an example of one of those exceptions. Recently, I was hanging out at my dad's house with family and friends playing cards, and I was out of it. I was definitely not my typical all-on self. It felt like, and I think I said it, the train has left, but the conductor was not on board. Aside from those rare moments, perhaps brought on by mom fatigue, when I wake up, I experience full-blown brain activity. It drives one particular person absolutely crazy. We are different, he and I. You may have guessed I'm talking about my husband, my king, my partner in this life who chose me, even though I was a single mom, even though that meant he would be thrown full thrust into being an insta-parent. He picked me on purpose, for a purpose. He gave me his name, and he put a ring on it, okay? I'll talk about him later in our story, I'm sure. With his permission, I may share some of our ups and downs in the hopes that it will encourage and inspire others in their matrimonial journey. We've grown so much, and I'm really so proud of who we're becoming and how we are aligning to a greater purpose. So the whole thing with my brain, and it always being on, it is full of ideas and optimism. I turn the word impossible to I am possible. I even turn some of the darkest stories into a silver lining. Though recently I came across a story and I do not have a silver lining at all for that. I do not have a silver lining for that mother, for that father, for the other family members who lost a very little one. All I have is rage and grief and I don't want to go there. I can't go there right now. Yesterday, I published episode 5, highlighting host of podcast Brilliant Every Day. And in that episode, I shared how she gets me, especially how cheesy I am. But there are 2 words that she laughs whilst quoting me. And I remember, I think it was like a Facebook post, I think that she put out there, or I don't know. Anyway, she gets a kick out of the fact that I have said I'm brilliant. And I am. LOL. Laugh out loud. My mom, she thought LOL was lots of love. I miss her so much. She would be so proud of me in this moment. And I know that she also remained proud of me even during my darkest of hours. I miss you, Mom. I'm looking forward to seeing you again. So I do give God credit for my brilliance. I give his angels, those acting as my guides, the credit. I had this aha moment that maybe it really wasn't me that was so brilliant after all, but it was me tapping into God's glory and the fact that we're not really alone. We can't see the cloud of witnesses, but they're there. Which reminds me of my Aunt Tommy. She was such a cute little spitfire. I miss her. When I would call her, like she would answer the phone, and then when she knew it was me, she would say, she called me Malin. And she had this like squeaky voice. It was so cute. Malin! I'm not doing it any justice. She was such an incredible human being. She's so short. She's just so little. She used to beat up her little brother, who happens to be my dad, until one summer he came back from North Carolina and he'd grown a foot or something, and he got his revenge. He got his revenge. But what was so special about her, I mean, so many things, but one of the things was she would send the first letter to my kids, like their first ever piece of mail. She was so thoughtful that way. Well, anyway, I felt she had a great sense of style. And one of the things that people knew about her, so let's say at church or I don't know, somewhere out and about, because she was very much a community helper, very much like her mom, my grandmother. And so people would say, and different people, I guess, called her different things. So Thomasina or Miss Page. And when you would describe her, you would say, the little one with the flower in her hair, because she wore a flower every day, almost every day. She had this great gift of putting clothes together, and something that I don't think other people would have been able to get away with, but she did. And every time I would compliment her on her attire, she would give credit to her fashion angels. And I thought that was really cute, but I started adopting not the fashion angel part, but just giving credit. But it also reminds me of a scripture, and I do want you to bear with me. So if you have either no religious affiliation or one that uses a different source of text, while I am just here being me and remaining unapologetic as I pour out my heart and share things that I know or things I've read, at the same time, I am a compassionate person, and I have my own hangups with religion and church hurts. And that'll be something that I address later. But I want to recognize that for a vast number of people who become listeners, some things that I say or believe won't line up with you, and that's okay. But just stick with me. Don't throw the baby out with the bathwater. And I don't intend for this message today to get too uncomfortable for you. How about that? But I am going to reference this text in 2 Kings chapter 6. So Elisha prays for his servant's eyes to be opened so he can see the spiritual realm. So initially, the servant is terrified by the Aramean army that's surrounding them with their chariots and horses. But when his eyes are open, he's actually able to see a heavenly army surrounding Elisha, where there are chariots and horses like aflame on fire. Oh, it's just so cool. Most of us are not tapped into the spiritual realm the way that some are. We only see what our human and very limited eyes show us in what some people call the 3D realm. We're only capable of detecting a narrow range of electromagnetic radiation, I looked that up, known as the visible spectrum. So basically, right, what you see with the rainbow, or if you had like a glass prism and light came through it. Basically, we can see red through violet, unless you're colorblind, that is. Sorry, Michael. That's my brother-in-law. Anyway, we can't see infrared or ultraviolet. We can't see Wi-Fi waves and sound waves. There's so much going on around us that we don't see. And we're also limited through the lens of our past and or the lens of how we are raised or the people around us, so I often will quote, I think to his dismay, that my husband and I can believe two different things and be simultaneously correct. Two opposing things can be true at once. And it's like there's a diagram where there's, a person on one side and there's a number on the ground and there's a person on the other side. And to one person, it's the number 6. And that person is right. They do see the number 6. But on the other side, that person sees 9. It's the same number written down, just a different perspective. So that's my run on that. But again, there's more to see, and I think we all could access it. Maybe not all. I mean, some people are open. I'm a very open person. Some people are closed. Some people have to believe, I don't know, whatever they have to believe in order to survive. And speaking of that, I think there's so many of us that are in survival mode. And that will definitely be a future podcast discussion. Maybe one where I talk about therapy. I'm sure I will mention that a lot. But I think we have different gifts, and some have a gift of healing. Some have a gift of other sight, if you will. Gifts of extrasensory perception, or ESP. And in other times, and not that long ago, in fact, one of my cousins was telling me, and I'm not sure if it was during a time that she was in Africa, but when she was young, she had a teacher, and they were teaching those children how to, I feel like it was kind of like mindfulness, or just touching into their brain, but also touching into the gift of ESP to be able to communicate in your brain with another person, not out loud. I think that's so extraordinary, and we've totally gotten away from all of that, which again is also probably another podcast episode. But I want to tap into that. And while I've never bent a spoon or lifted a cup off of the table with my mind, which is probably a good thing, I would abuse that if I got angry. But occasionally I have a knowing. Like, I can't describe it other than to say it that way, and maybe some of you know what I'm saying. Sometimes I just know things that no one told me, and I've told someone something about themselves, and it was totally accurate. It was true. I think some people are more sensitive to those gifts of perception. And anyway, another thing is my ideas. Well, again, I'm always on. The ideas are always running through, especially like workarounds. I love when people say something cannot be done or something's impossible. I just let them watch me. I like to just, I don't know. I don't know if it's my competitive. That's very likely has to do with my competitive spirit. It's kind of like holding my beer, even though I don't drink beer. Anyway, another thing about me is that I like to be collaborative with multiple people. And as much of a natural born leader as I am, I don't want to lead, at least not one group. I want to be a member of multiple groups. So Um, I'm trying to, I'm remembering something in it, but I'm just trying to figure out how it applies or if it's just a total, if it's a total off ramp, but I'm going to go with it, okay? So just stay with me, hang tight, put your seatbelt on. When my husband, Jacob, and I were just friends, which really I had put him into a friend zone, he commented about my flirtation. And let me set the record straight. He did not think I was flirty. But, okay, this is what happened. I was pulled aside and so this is, I'm trying to think of the time frame, 14, I don't know, years ago or something like that. So in church, I was pulled aside by some friends in church, other women who said that I should be careful, ultimately because my personality was flirtatious, which was never my intent. I was just this bright and bold and full of love person, and I did learn that a couple of people thought I liked them, and I think it's because I just was being me, and I think so I'm talking about like a much earlier time, and that would be like 20 years ago. I was young and I hadn't been raised in church. I didn't know about, I don't know, like church etiquette stuff necessarily. I remember being told by someone not to look this guy into his eyes when I talked to him. It's so weird. There's a lot of weird stuff that happened. Again, that's another episode somewhere. Where am I going with this? But there were guys that thought I liked them because I was friendly. And there's even, so like this one guy, he said, "Oh, I can tell like you're really happy to see me." Like I lit up. And I don't know if this is like only child thing or like as an only child, I never necessarily, and I was my mom's only child. Let me just set that record straight too. My father had a child in his first marriage, but she's older than I am, and we were never raised together. And my mom is his third wife, and they had me, and I loved being raised as an only child. Us only children, like we like the attention and all that stuff. Where am I going with this? So everywhere I went, I was longing for like family and connection and to be part of something. And I think that is probably what drew me to church first when I was 15, and then later when I was 21, and actually in between when I went off to college. Oh my gosh. I am trying to find my place back to where I was going. So anyway, a number of guys, I didn't come across as, what's the word? I was just like all over the place. And what I mean by that is I was cheerful and I was bouncing from here to there. I was in the singles ministry because I was 21 when I got baptized, and I didn't want to be locked into one group. Okay, this is starting now to connect. Remember, I said I wanted to be a member of multiple groups. So I introduced myself to so many families, to the moms and dads who had kids. And I was like, I'm the queen of babysitting. And so I babysat a lot, and then I hung out with people in the campus ministry. I'm like, everybody's my brother and sister. And, I branched out. So anyway, some other women were, I don't know, more guarded or shielded, or I don't know, reverently stoic. So these two people pulled me aside, told me I was being flirty, and I was like, oh, heck no. I need to, again, set the record straight. So I called Jacob. He went by Jake at that time. And I told him I wanted to apologize, right? That I didn't want him to get the wrong impression. And he made a comment which was quite upsetting, but one that he's made up for. I can't remember verbatim, but it had something to do with however I was with him, which I think at this moment I kind of knew that I was at least attracted to him, even though I put him in the friend zone. But he was like, oh, you're like that with everyone. And that gave me pause, and I was like, what? Like, what are you saying? And this, my offense, slight offense, might have been based on the way that I felt when these two women told me, in no uncertain terms that, basically that I'm trying to remember, like, were they telling me like I was in sin or sinning or sinful or, blurring the lines? I don't know. But I was shocked. I didn't like that. But how he made up for it was when he actually asked me to be his girlfriend eventually. So at that point, the point of him asking me, it was very clear. Like, he was taking me on dates. All right. And, it was very clear that he was not in, just straight friend zone. But he wrote me a poem and he referenced, the whole butterfly thing, right? And he wrote me a poem, and it was so beautiful. And yeah, and after we got married, he gave me a necklace with a butterfly on it, and I used to wear it every day. I actually just found it recently, so I think I'll put it back on. So, wow, I've kind of gone over a lot of stuff. And this was a sneak peek into me, someone who's always on, someone who is always me, always myself, someone who is a social butterfly, someone who is sensitive to other people's beliefs and ideas, someone who wants to help others and give my ideas to the masses. Wait, right? I'm doing that right now too. Whoa. And I kind of feel like I've run out of steam and I'm going to stop. But I hope you have enjoyed this. And as always, I'm going to sign off saying, I'm not here to be perfect. I'm here to be present, to speak, to be heard, to heal, and maybe, just maybe, to set someone else free. Thanks for joining me. Until next time, unapologetically yours.